Hey all, and welcome to this week's episode of the Mike Muldoon podcast. As always, thanks for joining me this week. Hope you had a great week, and I hope you got some great plans going into the weekend. It's St. Patrick's Day weekend this week, though I can't remember the actual. Actually, I do. I can remember the last time I celebrated a St. Patrick's Day. My daughter was 6 months old. I had this great St. Patrick event that went on by where we were living. We're living in a different area at the time in Charlotte, and I actually went out with some friends. Probably the last time I lived what would maybe be considered a bachelor lifestyle, but not really a bachelor because I was married. But where it was just you and your wife. You had a little bit more time, and I went out with some friends. And I have to tell you, we celebrated St. Patrick's Day that day, and it was crazy. But it's probably the last time I've actually gone out and done something for it. But anyway, it is here. So if you're going out, be safe. Okay, be safe this week. Anyway. All right, let's get to it today. So today I want to talk about like this relentless pursuit of progress that so many of us are chasing, and a lot of times when we think about it, it's often counterintuitive to think that, maybe you should take a step back, because if you take a step back, you might be able to move forward. But a lot of times it's very counterintuitive. What do you mean? What about if I go backwards? How do I go forward if I go backwards? But yet this paradoxical strategy really holds a profound truth. It's recognized in various aspects of life, and it's literally supported by psychological principles that sometimes by taking a step backwards, you can actually go forward and probably get yourself there quicker. So, taking a step back might just provide that momentum needed, for basically a greater leap, kind of slingshot yourself back, right? Pull yourself back, then shoot yourself forward, because a lot of times it offers a fresh perspective, a renewed energy, I guess, so to speak, and valuable insights on what you may have been blinded to prior. So today, I want to talk about this approach and how it can be beneficial in your personal development, your career advancement, and even in fostering creativity. This talk was recently I like rush out every morning to get my kids to school, and because it was like, we got to be on the road by 7:41, because if we don't hit this roundabout by 7:43, we're going to get backed up. And it was always the way, and we get backed up, and sometimes I was just barely getting the kids to school on time, and sometimes we were late. So one day, a couple of weeks ago, we get to the roundabout and it's jammed up, and I'm like, oh gosh, let's go a different way. So I actually went around the roundabout and went completely the opposite direction. Went all the way down, got to another road, made a left, and literally took a back road to get there. Now it's a little bit longer, but I got there faster. And now every morning when I take the kids to school, I don't take them, which would seem like the most obvious way. You get out, you go, through our development, you go down this way, and then I go completely in the opposite direction. It almost feels weird, only to get to a road that then suddenly when I turn off kind of cuts me up and cuts off all the traffic to get there. And it just made me think about that sometimes in life. It's really hard, even though it looks like it might be, hey, this is the better way to go. It's still hard to go, but wait a second, I'm going backwards. I'm driving backwards. I'm going completely in the wrong direction. But yet, it's worked out for me. So, when you have to take a step forward, take a step backwards, go forward. I mean, look, you got to see that there's some benefits, right? Like in personal development and in all your relationships, like taking that step back can give yourself like that space to kind of reflect on your goals or your actions or your behaviors, right? So for example, like in a relationship that might be strained by constant conflict or misunderstanding, creating distance, right, allows both parties to cool down, reassess their feelings, and gain a new perspective on, what truly matters. Psychologically, this is like akin to the concept of emotional regulation, okay, which involves managing one's emotions to respond to challenges in a healthy way instead of just reacting. And by stepping back, you can prevent immediate, often these emotional reactions or outbursts, enabling more of a thoughtful and productive response. How many times have you heard that? You know what? Why don't we cool down? Why don't we take a moment, take a step back? Well, you got to take a step backwards because you keep going forward. That relationship may take a turn on a course that maybe maybe, you'll regret at some point. And sometimes you just hear to some relationships in general. It doesn't have to be a heated fight. Sometimes you just got to get some distance away from each other to realize, the value in that relationship or whether or not it has any value to you and it's worth continuing on. But again, there's something to be learned, but you won't know that unless you're willing to take a step back from it and get a clear point of view on it. For some of you right now in career, right? Maybe you're looking at career advancement, but, in this realm of career advancement that, we're always looking to, hopefully move up in the world. The idea of taking a step back to move forward might manifest as changing jobs or even careers to realign with your true passion and goals. I mean, I took a huge step back. For anybody who's been following my podcast for last July, I stepped away from a job where I was getting paid a lot of money. I took a lot of money because it wasn't really aligned with the kind of life I wanted to live. And I found myself in kind of peril for a little while. And then I landed with a company and that was going all right. And then that literally ended for me. But, I'm not super freaked out by it because I understand that you've got to take these chances and life forces you into a certain direction sometimes. And, I've had to kind of step back and reassess things, but I also know at the end of it, I'll come out better for it anyway. But looking at examples of people who had to step major back, Steve Jobs, right? He was ousted from Apple. It was the company he co-founded. But instead of, making it a challenge, he used that time to reflect and learn. And eventually he was brought back with all the insights he needed to lead Apple to an incredible and enormous amount of success. I mean, that career setback was in reality an opportunity for Jobs to actually reassess this vision and his approach and demonstrating the psychological concept of resilience, right? I mean, could you imagine you built Apple, you were ousted, and then you're able to build this, this resilience, the ability to recover from that setback and then use them as an opportunity for growth where so many people might just live in, regret or hostility and never use as an opportunity to move forward, just be angry all the time, right? Because they were pushed out. Now they're angry and they're mad, but they don't use it as an opportunity to grow from it. And one of the really interesting things about if you're a creative person, sometimes you got to step away. I've known that with writing over the years, you get blocked and you're like, oh man, I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I don't know what the next beat's going to be. I don't know what the end of the story is going to be. And then you just get away from it. And sometimes weeks, days, months, and suddenly it just comes to you. I mean, creatively taking a step back is often necessary to overcome those creative blocks. I mean, J.K. Rowling, she faced numerous rejections. I'm big on J.K. right now because my daughter is all into the Harry Potter stuff, right? So we all know the story. She faced numerous rejections before finding a publisher for Harry Potter series, right? But during these times, right, which are very challenged, right, because you think you have this great property and you're out there and everybody's telling you it's not great, nobody wants it, she continually would revisit and refine her manuscripts, right, which ultimately contributed to the success of her novels. So this process really illustrates the psychological principle of what's really called incubation, which is part of a creative process for anybody who's out there. It's where stepping away from a problem or a project allows your subconscious mind to work on it, right? Because our subconscious mind is always doing so. It's always working in the background for us. And a lot of times, for me, what would happen is it just led to breakthroughs and sort of, other innovative solutions to things I was working on. I mean, let's not forget, we've often talked about the subconscious mind, and it plays a crucial role in the process of taking a step back, right? You got to take that step back to move forward because in those periods of rest or distance from the problem, the subconscious mind, it continues to process the information, make connections, solve problems, often leading to those aha moments, when that solution becomes clear. But again, it's just not for creative endeavors. It's for personal. It's for career. Sometimes with that distance, it keeps working. You might work things out. You might realize, you know what, the job and the career is doing great and I'm okay. And maybe there's some other challenges I had to overcome and maybe I'm letting that stuff bother me. Or you might realize that career or that relationship isn't working for you. But if you don't have the space or the distance or the willingness to step back from it, you'll never really know. Because when you do all that, it's going to allow, for cognitive flexibility, which is that mental ability to switch between thinking about two different concepts or to think about multiple concepts simultaneously, which is enhanced when we allow ourselves to step back, right? So this flexibility is crucial for problem solving and adapting to new situations. It's a key component for moving forward in life, right? I know it seems like a lot, and it's scary. It could be scary going, well, I'm going to step back from this. Or what about if I make the wrong decision? You know, what if I leave the job and it was completely wrong? Or I step back from the relationship and it turns out they go on and they find somebody else. But what about if you don't try? And what about if you stay in a relationship that's horrible? What about if you stay in a job and, 10 years later, 10 years have gone by and you're still in the same place and you're still not happy? What about if you don't step away to let that creative endeavor flow, and you just stare at your computer and you just, frozen at your desk for the next 2 weeks? Sometimes you just got to step back. And the thing about all of this, when you can step back and see things clearly, it creates a growth mindset, which we've often talked about, right? Because a growth mindset embraces challenges, right? It perseveres in the face of setbacks. Again, stepping back. You don't, when things going really well for you, you don't step back, right? You keep moving forward. But when you have to do it, it's kind of a setback. And, but a growth mindset, it views these efforts as a path to mastery. Taking a step back, you demonstrate a belief in your ability to grow and improve. And it sets your stage up, right, for future progress and future successes. So look, taking a step back to move forward, it's just a powerful strategy across various facets of life. Again, career, personal, creative, and it allows for this emotional regulation, resilience, incubation of ideas, cognitive flexibility, and it fosters that growth mindset. So whether it's, pausing to reassess your personal goals, pivoting your career, which I've done, or allowing creative ideas to mature, this approach can lead to significant breakthroughs and achievements. Sometimes the best way to advance is to retreat, reflect, and then with a renewed vigor, leap forward towards your goals. And sometimes when you're willing to take a different direction and head direction, you get your kids to school on time, not even on time. You get them there early. And I've picked up an extra 5 minutes of my life. I've picked up an extra 30 minutes with my willingness to head off, take a step backwards and head off in the right direction. Oh, gosh, there we are. Anyway, thanks so much for being with me. Thanks for being here today. Don't be scared to get distance. Don't be scared to step back. Like, we've all heard, sometimes you got to take a step backwards, take a step forward. Oh, great. So, hope you're enjoying everything. Everybody, I'd love to keep following some of the comments, the messages. You can always check me out on my website, MikeMuldoonLC.com. Share with your friends. I think I'm on like almost 80 episodes in right now, which has been great. I think I'm closing on 80. I'm not there yet. But I appreciate your continued support. And if you haven't done already, please subscribe to to Apple or Spotify, wherever you might have found this podcast. Like I said, I try to keep it quick. I try to keep it simple. Try to keep it easy. I've been doing some great interviews lately. So I'll be putting in some more interviews coming up. I like to kind of space those out. And as always, it's Friday. Be safe. And I got nothing but love for you.